This Women's Day, we go beyond titles and achievements to explore the resilience, challenges, and impact of female leaders in education. Here with me today is Ms. Radhika Rajkaria, the PYP Principal at Ascend International School. We're here to explore her journey behind the scenes, behind the strength. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Ms. Radhika, what inspired you to pursue a career in education and eventually step into a leadership role within the IB-PYP framework?
So my grandfather was a professor, so education has been in our family, and that's what inspired me. I didn't get a lot of time with him in his journey because he was sort of in a different place. But I've heard lots of stories about him through my parents and through my father, and so I think, subconsciously it was always there. So I think that inspired me. I do come from a very big family, so I think I was always playing the teacher, just didn't realize, with lots of siblings and cousins, and so it was just, it's naturally. And then I really decided to take the path to get formal education in teaching, and then I went abroad for almost 20-25 years.
Wow.
And that's where I taught for many years, and then did my master's and all of that. And then I came back to Mumbai. I joined Ascend when I came back, and actually I started as the design teacher. And then during the pandemic, slowly made my way to leadership, just sort of organically, just, they saw my work, liked it. So it was just a journey that just took its own path. Nothing was planned.
Organic transition.
Yes.
Okay. As a woman in educational leadership, what unique challenges have you faced, and how have those experiences shaped your approach to leadership?
I think it's, education, obviously you're dealing with people all the time, so there's a lot of human emotion. You're with children all the time, you're with their parents all the time, you're with teachers all the time. So at any given level there are challenges, some on a daily basis, some are bigger, some you sort of think are bigger but are not that big. And so I think there's a lot of social, emotional learning, and a lot of I think it takes some kind of resilience to go through this path. So I feel like that's sort of the journey in leadership, in education, where you are with people all the time and you learn from them. It's not just one way where you're telling them, even in a leadership position or as a teacher, it's not a one-way street where you're directing people what to do. You're actually constantly picking up on people's cues and what they're saying. And I think a big part of it that I've learned is active listening. A lot of problems are solved. You think those challenges are there, but you need to listen, and then you really can understand what's going on or not, and then reason. So I think that's one of the big learnings. And then the challenges are, the daily challenges and all of the things that come with emotions.
Can you share a moment in your career where you had to overcome significant challenges or make a personal sacrifice? How did that experience contribute to your resilience?
I think I would say it was during the pandemic. So we had, like I said earlier, I had moved from the US to India, and then maybe like a year and a half after moving is when the pandemic happened. And then we ended up actually moving back because my girls were in school and they needed to, they wanted to go back, and they had the option and to get vaccinated and all that. So for a temporary period, we moved back, but then they were there and I came back to start school.
Okay.
Again, being in a leadership position, it calls for, responsibility, going above and beyond. And I think that was sort of challenging, the personal piece. How do you balance that? And yet there are hundreds of students here, and how do we, and India was shut for a long time. So how much can you do online, especially with younger children? So I think that whole phase really called for creative thinking. How do you sort of even, navigate around this problem where there are kids at home in front of a screen, and then again balancing what can you provide, and then for a period of time I was back there with my children and working all through the night because of the time difference.
Of course.
So those were just choices you had to make at that point, but I think striking that balance and doing what you needed to do in both realms sort of work
Kind of
itself
helped,
out.
yes.
But it developed a lot of resilience. It took, you have to. It sort of made me think of the big picture.
It's a journey
It's
reaching
a
there.
journey, and
Yes.
within 6 to 8 months, things will start getting better. But how do you make it through those 6 months? Do you give up? Do you sort of keep going?
Yes.
So as a mom too, like you're playing different roles, and so how do you balance all of that? So I think I did develop a lot of resilience.
The IBPYP emphasizes inquiry and international mindedness. How do you use these principles to empower students, especially young girls, to become confident, resilient thinkers?
Yeah, so I think one of the things is letting them actually speak. I feel like, a lot of times, even in the classroom, you will see they're not the first ones to talk. Or when you open it up for discussion, there are, other people who talk over them. Or sometimes there's one or two, boys or girls who talk. So I think it's sort of laying this field out that everyone has an opinion, everyone has a suggestion. Maybe not everything is going to be taken, but you do have a voice.
Every voice matters.
Yes, and so I think that's one big one that we've seen with girls. I think even girls in sports. That's been one of my sort of on the side at the school and otherwise outside too, that getting them involved in physical activity. And it doesn't have to be competitive always, so not at that level, but some engagement. Because as you grow up and enter the teen years as well, it's a great way to channelize your energy. And yes, you have the academics, you have other things you're doing, and anything. Sports is one way, but if you're interested in music or you're interested,
Right.
so sort of exploring those other avenues, having a hobby, being a little more balanced. So I think we see that with young girls all the time. And international mindedness. We are an international school. We have faculty from all over the world. I moved from here back to a different country, moved back. So everyone has some experience to share. So I think that automatically opens up conversations, and we have
Exposure,
students,
yes.
and we have students from other countries. We have faculty, children at the school. So everyone has very unique stories that we share. We have these international language days and all of that. So I think it's sort of a combined effort, which leads in that direction.
Yeah, it all kind of aligns together.
Yes.
How do you cultivate a school culture that not only celebrates academic success but also nurtures emotional strength, empathy, and support among both staff and students?
So yeah, that's a huge part of our school's philosophy, that social emotional learning is as important as academic. In fact, almost if you feel safe and happy, you're going to learn better. So
right.
Keeping that, it's not an isolated class that we do, that now it's about kindness, now it's about sharing, and then
right.
the rest of the day you're doing math, science, reading. No,
Yes.
It's sort of intertwined with everything we do. We do a lot of, I think one of the things we do a lot is restorative practices. So we do a lot of conversations, conflict resolution, talking to students, and again coming back to where you have a voice.
Absolutely.
So you share what you feel. And
holistic.
you will be heard.
Yeah.
And then we move to the resolution part, which is part 2.
Of course.
But
Yes.
first, everyone gets a chance to talk. Everyone gets a chance to share their perspective. It's not
Right.
no one, like the teachers or any of us. We don't have a bias against
Of
one
course.
view or the other,
Of
and so
course.
we want to hear. So I think that itself has cultivated a big culture of. So it'll be surprising, but students come to us and tell us that we think we need to talk.
Wow,
Can
that's
we,
nice.
can we, so even if math or reading or anything is going on, if we need to talk and something is going on, then we need to talk. And that's important. And so it's not dismissed or said, okay, let's do it at the end of the day. So I think that's also creating.
I'm sure, yes. That aids wholesome development.
Yes.
Yes.
And with teachers, it's the same. If there's anything for their emotional well-being, I mean, it's a very, just some time back we were talking, you
It's
give
a
a
taxing
lot.
job, yes.
You give a lot, and then you still have other parts to play in your life, right?
Absolutely,
Your day
yes,
gets over
yes.
at 3:30 and then you go back home. So for their emotional being too, we're all here to talk to each other, and if someone's not feeling well or emotionally not feeling there, we do give them time off, and they do sort of work on their own well-being. And then sometimes we've had yoga classes, we've had these other things in school, built in school. We have these meetings on Wednesdays where everyone eats like their snack, and the whole faculty comes together, and the first part is just everyone just talking to each other. It's not like moving to the agenda of the meeting.
Which
So
is
all those
essential,
things,
yes.
yeah.
It's community building, which
Yes.
is really important.
Yeah,
Yes.
and because now we have two
Yes,
buildings,
two buildings,
people
yes.
don't see each other much in each, so then that's a great way to bring everyone together.
who were your mentors along the way, and how do you now work to mentor other educators and female leaders within your community?
So my mentors actually came at different, at different times in my journey, and I had to seek them out. So I think I wasn't when I was in school and high school, and then decided to go to the US. There was not all this exposure where you had mentorship and you had to go out, you had to find people. So I think when I went abroad here, of course, I have a very strong family, and there are lots of women in my family who are very strong. So, I think naturally that mentorship came from my mother and my sister and, my cousins. But when I went abroad, I think I seek them out, and there were lots of professionals in education. And so I had, other teachers, mentor teachers, even in extended family friends. I think everyone played a really, really strong part in my development.
Yes.
And I'm glad that I still get to actually touch base with all of them, even now.
Yes, of course.
So that's also important to keep it going, and sometimes it's just
Revisiting your-
it's really, and I don't think they're expecting anything from me. It's just keeping in touch with them. So I think those have been sort of my mentors. In terms of mentoring other women, I think there are lots of now. It's really great because you have these formal groups also, so people approach you. Education is not, on the surface. Yes, you have teachers, but it takes time for people to sort of make that as a career choice. So I think we have to sometimes reach out or spread the word just about
Yes.
the joys of this of teaching, and it might not always be the first career that they pick.
Yes.
But you have to love it to do it. So I think when we're mentoring, also we talk about the passion that's needed because it is tiring, and
It is tiring,
you are with kids all day and you're giving so much. So you really have to love it. Otherwise, you're not going to end up liking it, and you'll leave.
I'm sure you have to have the sort of the feeling of endearment towards whatever you're doing.
Yes.
Otherwise, we don't see it
Yes. And
fructifying in anything, especially when you're handling kids. So
Exactly, and seeing their development over, because you see them year after year, and you see their journey,
their growth.
Yes, and so there's also a great sense of pride to see the children, and whatever they pick to do,
Right.
Doesn't matter. You see where they've sort of from where they started and where they are
that
now.
by itself is a source of motivation.
It is.
Yes. Okay. Looking back on your career, what do you consider your most meaningful accomplishment, and how do you hope that legacy inspires future generations of women in education?
So I think it's not just one thing, it's a few different things. I think the first for me was when I actually decided to formally become a part of this profession. Because like I said, you informally, you're teaching your cousins, doing all of that, but I think I needed to go to grad school to really understand the process. Because there is a process, for teaching, for sort of being, even working in teams, planning, curriculum, all of that. So I think that, during that process also we were doing internships at school. So then you get to do sort of the theory part, and
the
then you get to
practical.
actually
Yes.
go into the classroom.
On floor.
And some days nothing works, and you have to be okay with that, and you realize that as much as I planned, I had to change it all up based on how the kids were responding. So I think that formal piece of education was one of the milestones for me.
That is also the way IB works. It's not a straight path.
It's not.
It's a path to the goal, but it's not a straight path.
No, not at all. And in fact, you don't have to be fully IB trained also. You can be
Exactly.
trained on the job.
Right.
I think the bigger thing is you have to be flexible and open-minded.
Absolutely, yes.
Sometimes you have to be totally ready to unlearn and then go back and sort of
Yes.
rethink and relearn. So as long as you're
Open to, yes.
new ways of learning and being creative, I think that's really IB.
Correct.
And
Yes.
then you can gain all the, you can do all the courses and get the formal sort of training. So I think for me also along the journey, having taught in different schools, I taught in public schools, in private schools, in charter schools. So just that range also gives you a sense of, the different demographics.
Of course, yes.
I did teach in an inner city school, and the kids came from, they came from underserved backgrounds, and it's really, really different from where we are today.
Right.
And that itself was a learning experience for me as well, because
course.
I don't think I went through anything that they did, and then yet how do you empathize with them? How do you become that teacher who motivates them before they drop off from school or are pulled into something? So I think all those experiences were very meaningful, and there was struggle. There was struggle also in all these experiences. I think the struggle was great because it built resilience, and I didn't give up on this.
Yes, it all adds to the learning curve.
So there are days when you're exhausted and you just want to sort of shut off, but something just brings you back the next day.
How do you envision the role of strong, resilient female leaders evolving in education, and what changes would you like to see to further empower women in India and education?
So I think, like I said, going back to the previous question, some amount of struggle and diverse range of experiences, I think that's very important.
Right.
So that you can also view things from a, sort of broader lens and not just be boxed into just one way of thinking.
Right.
Women in education, I think, again, a very balanced sort of education is not only books and it's not only, academics. Whether you're in sports, you're in performing arts, whatever you may be doing, bring that to your students. Bring that, holistic lens because I think others see you and they get inspired even without you knowing. And that's when they see that you are, you're a strong woman, not because, you just got 90% or you got a grade A. You're balanced, you're able to do other things, you're able to be with people. I think that's one of the big things, your communication skills, working on that. So I think, all these 21st century skills, we talk about the soft skills, all of that, embodying all of that. And then, others see you. And that's what you're doing. I think you're also imparting that education that you're saying that let's be balanced and let's do whatever we do with passion. And we will have certain passion areas, but overall there is this holistic development that needs to happen.
Absolutely. In fact, that is what matters today. I think that's the inner strength towards the outer strength, I guess.
Yes.
What does strength mean to you personally? And how do you convey that to your students and colleagues every day?
So I think actually strength to me is struggle because it derives itself out of that. If everything is handed to you on a platter and you haven't sort of been through any kind of hardship, it's really hard for you to be resilient. It's really, the definition of resilience itself then doesn't matter. And if you're put into a situation where it's not your everyday, you have to be able to cope up with it, and that's when those skills kick in.
Right.
We saw the pandemic and how we all had to,
work our way through.
Work our way, but at the same time still keep the sanity.
Absolutely. Yes.
We're not, operating in isolation, so we had to keep the sanity for our family, for people who are attached to us. So there's a lot that goes on. So I think everyone, some sort of struggle when everyone goes through something. What do you learn from that? It is, sometimes it can be negative, of course, you go through different kinds of things in life, but then turning that negative over a period of time into a positive and, what did I actually walk away with? Did I emerge stronger from this situation? And what can I learn from it?
Yes.
So I think all those things sort of build towards, your strength, inner strength.
Yes.
And then outer strength, everyone should work out and be physically sort of also strong, which is important.
Which is very important.
Yeah, so again, you play a sport, you work out, you do yoga, whatever you do, keep, I think again there's a balance with that as well, what you eat.
Mind over matter, and that's important.
Yes, for sure.
Great. Lovely speaking with you. Thank you for being with us.
No, thank
It's
you.
been very insightful having this conversation. Thank you. Thank you very much.